Hello and welcome to another episode with Chat with Ty. Today is going to be episode 8 of Talking Sports. I have another guest with me, Grace Hanley. She's from Washington, went to college at University of Oregon. And why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Tell us a fun fact.
So my name is Grace Hanley, and I'm from Tacoma, Washington. I went to high school with Tyler, actually, so we're pretty good friends from that. And I remember when he was at ASU and he decided to transfer to University of Minnesota, and I was like, why? But it makes sense because of all the opportunities he's gotten out there. A fun fact about me is my roommate's dog is named Mello after Carmelo Anthony. He's really cute.
Great. That's a good fun fact. So I understand that you graduated with a degree in sports management as well recently. Why did you choose to pursue this industry in the first place?
So the main reason I went to University of Oregon was actually for their sports business degree. And I grew up playing sports and watching sports every weekend and almost every night with my dad. And so through that, I just grew like a passion and a love for it because I also played 3 sports in high school, in addition to watching football and all these other sports and baseball. And so that was kind of my main reason for going to University of Oregon. And then once I got there, I saw the vast number of opportunities that the school offered in sports. So there's a business school with it, and you can concentrate in something. And so I chose to concentrate in finance and then as well sports business. And within the sports business program, it's marketing focused. And so that's why I paired it with the finance degree, so that I could get into the more statistical side of sport. And so some of the classes that were offered at the school were a sports analytics class. And so growing up, I watched sports, but I also studied the statistics behind it. And with that in high school, I was able to get a couple opportunities working with the local baseball team to kind of go over and analyze their stats, which is kind of, I think, is the place I really fostered my love and grew my love for statistics in sports.
That's really interesting because when I was applying for colleges and also looking to transfer, I was also looking at University of Oregon because, well, they have a really good, well-known sports management, sports business program. And I didn't realize that they have like a sports business that's underneath the business program, and you have the ability to choose to also major in a different business degree instead of just focusing on sports management or sports business. I also had a minor in statistics at Arizona State because I wanted to pursue sports statistics side of things as well, but it didn't really transfer over well to Minnesota, so I didn't have time to get another minor, which is kind of sad, but that's how it goes. So tell me a little bit more about how you got your first opportunity in sports.
So at the University of Oregon, there's a sports business club called the Warsaw Sports Business Club. And even before I started at the school, when I was touring it, they told us about this club because it's the biggest club on campus. There's over 300 students in it while I was there. And within that club, they have guest speakers come from Nike and Adidas and Under Armour and pretty much every sports company in the area and then across the country as well, because it is a big program and a big club. And in that, they provide you opportunities to go on field trips as well as sign up for projects within other companies. So the first one I got actually at University of Oregon was a chance to go to Denver, kind of a week-long trip over our spring break my freshman year. And we got to go travel around to each stadium in Denver. So we went to the Broncos field, and then we also went to the Denver Nuggets stadium, which is also where the Colorado Avalanche play. So it's kind of interesting getting to see the transition between hockey and basketball, because when we were there, we actually got to go see a hockey game. And then from that, they took us to the Olympic training facility in Colorado Springs, I believe. And so we got to go up there, and we stayed there for 2 nights in the dorms, and we got tours of all the stadiums. We got to play on the courts, and it was just really interesting because there's also Olympians. Like Katie Ledecky was just walking by, and I thought it was so cool just getting to be a part of that. And so that was my first opportunity kind of in sports at the school. And I also had seen that there was applications out to be a sports manager for any of the track and for, I guess, a lot of the sports teams at Oregon. And track and field is probably one of the, besides football and basketball, is their biggest sport, as it is Tracktown USA, and it's Nike sponsored school. And so I signed up for that, and I didn't know if I was going to get it as a freshman. And I ended up getting it. And I did that for 2 years, which was just an amazing experience because with that, I got to go to all the track meets over COVID, and they were building the brand new Hayward Stadium and Hayward Field. And I was basically, when I started working out of the basement of their old basketball court at University of Oregon, so just in the dungeon. And then you watch this from my dorm room. I watched this whole giant stadium be built up within a year. They kind of rushed it because they were running behind schedule, of course. But I got to watch the whole thing build up by the time COVID hit. And then once COVID hit, they had to cancel everything, but I was still the manager. So then I came back again the fall of my junior year, and we moved everything from the dungeon over into this new, brand new facility, probably billions of dollars and crazy facility. And we got to move everything in. And then we started, we'd go to practices, we'd help with the uniforms, we'd organize all the inventory, we'd meet with the coaches, we'd do pretty much everything that was asked of us with that. And so that was probably my biggest opportunity at University of Oregon.
That's awesome. I understand that there's a lot of clubs that you can look into if you're in colleges that might be beneficial for your career in the major and industry that you choose. Similar to Oregon, at Arizona State, we have this club called the Sports Business Association, which I was a part of. And we also had like panels and trips to New York, visits to the MLB office and stuff like that. And I was really excited to be a part of that when I was at Arizona State. And after I transferred to the University of Minnesota, I searched it up online, and they also have a sports business association kind of club. Unfortunately, due to COVID, it was not operational at the time when I arrived. And I just never really got into the club because of COVID, because of the pandemic, which was unfortunate. But if for anyone else out there, if you want to work in sports, look into that kind of club at your university, because I believe most big universities offer something like that. And it's a really good opportunity to network and learn and meet people.
Yeah, I think all of my opportunities stemmed from the Warsaw Sports Business Club. I was able to work with soccer teams in Alabama, with the craft analytics group in Boston, just through networking through that club and taking advantage of all the opportunities they offered. They offered one with Fox Sports, and you got to do a social responsibility project with them and a group project. So they give you experience in the group projects as well. So it's just definitely networking in clubs is very huge, taking advantage of the opportunities.
Absolutely, yes. So you mentioned that you also work for multiple different sports teams and clubs and organizations. Do you want to run me through all of your grinds and the positions that you apply for and you got, and what you do for each of the different positions?
Yeah. So to start off, my first job I had in sports was with the We Are Tacoma Foundation. And so encompassed in that is the Tacoma Rainiers baseball team, the Tacoma Defiance FC, which is the Seattle Sounders second team, so their second division team, and then the Ole Reign, which is where like the Tacoma women's soccer team. I guess it's Washington now. I don't know, they changed the amount, but and so with that was more of a marketing and corporate partner services internship. I did, because it's a minor league organization, I got to do everything from being on the field, setting up the field boards for soccer, running promotions, I was 19 and I'd be sitting in a bar handing out t-shirts and drink tickets. I'd create media for them. I'd hang posters, hand out flyers. It was kind of everything. But through that, I got a lot of experience in using like Excel and Photoshop and Adobe InDesign. Those are some huge things I learned and took from that internship, because with their mid-season and annual reports, you had to help out with those at the end of each season. And so I got to take photos for those, create charts, create statistics on like email lists, send them out to people. So that was kind of my first job in sports. And that was cool because I got to go to every single Tacoma Rainiers baseball game. When Megan Rapinoe returned from being injured, I got to go to her first game back when she walked out of the dugout, and I got to watch the Sounders men's 2 team through a lightning storm with like a 3-hour delay. And so it was interesting. That one was just really fun. It was an unpaid internship, and it was definitely worth it for the experiences I got. My second job, like I mentioned, was with the Oregon track and field team. I got to attend all the meets, help out at the meets, set up the field boards again, go to practices, help out the coaches, get uniforms, and then also excel in organizing of inventory and counting. And the perk of that one was I got all of the gear that the athletes got and a little bit of scholarship money for doing that job. So that one was really interesting because I was involved in the school sports organization. So I would be on the field at nationals for all the track and field. All the schools were there, and I'd be on the field holding up a sign, or there'd be something cool. It was just cool to be a part of that because, like I said, it was a brand new facility. So the first nationals track and field at the brand new Hayward, it couldn't be packed because of COVID, but a lot of people were there. And it was just cool seeing the history behind all that stadium, all they built for it. And so that was one of my favorite things I did at Oregon. After that, through the Warsaw Sports Business Club, I got an opportunity to work with Fox Sports in a group project on social responsibility. And so with that, it was a 2-month-long, 2-month-long program. And I got to work on a group project about and come up with ideas about how to a social immersion program, how to make people more involved in sports in a positive direction. And because I'd worked at the Boys and Girls Club in the past as a sports coordinator in the game room, I had seen a lot of stuff I wanted to implement into that. And I had one of the guys in my group, his father works at Under Armour. And so we were able to come together, come up with some good ideas, and actually win that challenge out of the 4 groups because of the ideas we were able to come together with about including the inner city into more sports related events and just getting people focused on other things that are more positive for their future. And then after that, I got another opportunity through the Sports Business Club to work with a soccer team in Alabama. It was the Birmingham Legion FC. And that I did a lot of film review and data. So I would watch a game and then I'd mark every scoring opportunity for the soccer team. And that was through Stanford University, which is one of the top sports business schools and programs in the country. So that was cool getting to work with such a renowned guy. And that was just it was an interesting experience because his name's Dr. Darren White. And he's pretty big in the sports industry, and he's got a lot of connections for networking. So with that job, besides just watching film and trying to track each scoring opportunity on the soccer field, I got to write articles on things I was personally passionate about. So there's one I got to write on Euro 2020 and the soccer tournament and all the penalty kicks and why there were more penalty kicks one year compared to the other years. And then one of my passions is bull riding and watching bull riding, and I got to write an article on bull riding through that job, and they all got published on the Stanford University website, and it was cool getting to see that because he just said he could write them, and he told me some topics, or he said come up with your own topic, and he's like, there's no guarantee they'll be published, but we'll go through it, we'll work on it. And so I would send him these articles, and he published all 3 of the ones I sent for him. So that was just really cool seeing kind of my sports knowledge that I've gained over the years come to life and be published on a website. And then after that, the Warsaw Sports Business Club gave me an opportunity to go to the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference in Boston, but because of COVID, it was virtual, which actually benefited me because I wasn't as scared to go up and talk to people. So I messaged random people. I met up with a guy who's the chief information officer at ESPN. So he's a good connection I've made now. And his job is basically just sports statistics. And he solely focuses on interesting stats and building diagrams and charts, which is something I definitely want to pursue. And then I also reached out to this guy who was at the Philadelphia Eagles at the time. And I found out later that I was the only person who reached out to him out of the entire conference. And so why that's important is because he moved companies to the Craft Analytics group, where he became a senior analyst, and they were in between hiring times. And so they needed someone to just come in and fill in the work while they were trying to find a full-time candidate. And so they chose me because I kept contact with this guy, reached out to him. And that was probably my favorite opportunity I've had because I got to work under Robert Kraft, which is just crazy because he owns the Patriots. And then I also got to do what I was passionate about with building out charts and diagrams and focusing on statistics. And I did a project on the Sacramento Kings ticket pricing strategies. And so that gave me a lot of experience with coding as well as PowerPoint and making charts. I had to completely take apart the entire Sacramento Kings Golden One Center Stadium and then rebuild it and color code it based on ticket pricing strategies into 4 different charts. And that took a long time because on PowerPoint you have to make each individual shape, and it was worth it at the end. So that was kind of my most recent opportunity in sports.
That's amazing. It's really interesting to hear about other people's journey and how they build their connections and get their jobs, I guess. And a couple of the things that really stand out to me is how willing you are to just build connections and reach out and talk to people. That's something that I want to work on a little bit more. I'm more of a person when I'm working, I try to like focus on my work, and I usually get sucked into my own little zone and I forget to like talk to people as much and to make connections. Because one of the important thing, at least for me, hearing from like talking with everyone working in sports, is you're selling your personality, you're trying to build connections and put your name out there so people know who you are. One of the things about sports is that it's not always about what you know, but sometimes about who you know. So definitely build connections, reaching out. That's a great thing to learn about. And I found it really interesting that you mentioned the difference in minor leagues versus bigger leagues with your work for the Rainiers. And one of my friends, she did this unpaid internship during the summer with the St. Paul Saints, which is the minor league association of the Minnesota Twins. And she really enjoyed working there because they give him a lot more responsibilities and give him a lot more freedom. We both worked at the Timberwolves last season for game day stuff. And I talked to her about like the difference between her experiences. And she said her experience with the Saints made it seem like the Timberwolves experience is giving her like little to nothing experience compared to what she's doing with the Saints, which is absolutely insane to hear about. But it does make sense because when it comes to like the minor leagues, not as much people care about, the rules and everything. So you get more freedom to explore and learn.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. If I were to have worked at the Seattle Mariners, I would have been focused on one job, not gaining any experience in all the fields, where with the Tacoma Rainiers, I gained experience in every single field. I dabbled in sales and finance as well as marketing, even though the internship was supposed to be just marketing, but I got experience in it all. Whereas if I was with the Mariners, I would have just focused strictly on probably like being on the field or not really creating content.
Yeah, that's something interesting to learn about. So after talking about all your different experiences, which one is your favorite and why?
So there's 2, I think, that were my favorite. So I think that working for the track and field team at the University of Oregon was just an amazing experience. The work itself is not the most fun, I will say, because you're doing people's laundry sometimes. You're also organizing, you're sitting a lot in the equipment room, but the benefits you get from doing that is you make connections with the people you're working with. And then you also get to go to every single track and field meet for free. You get to watch, and I love watching track and field. I hate running it, but if I can sit and watch track and field meet all day, I would do that. And so I would sit, and I worked with the throwers. And so because I worked with the throwers, they don't need me to do much because they all grab their own shot puts and discuses and hammers. And so I would get to sit and record them at the track and field meet, and I could get out of kind of working, because the girl who worked with the sprinters, she had to be on the field moving cones and everything, but because I got to work with the throwers, I benefited, and I sat and watched every single event of the race. And there were some Olympians who would be running, because University of Oregon had a couple of Olympians on their track and field team while I was there. And so that was just amazing to me, because first of all, before I even am a fan of a team, I'm a fan of the sports itself. And so just getting to watch track and field and the best athletes in the world come and run at like a national track meet was just amazing to me. Seeing how incredible these athletes were was just very rewarding. Even though the work doing people's laundry sometimes wasn't the greatest, but getting involved in the school was just another thing, and getting all the gear was cool too. And then I would say working for the craft analytics group, I think because that was one of those opportunities. I didn't know a single person going into that, and I worked my way into that job by making connections with people. And so getting into that and then getting to do stuff I was passionate about, because it's a sports consulting company. And so it's basically like what I'm doing now. I'm working in finance at the moment, and I'm a financial analyst, but I got to do the same stuff, but for a sports company. And I thought that was just really interesting to me. And the work itself was cool, getting to see how like ticket pricing strategies work for an NBA team, or getting to help out with like almost helped out with the Timberwolves project. So I learned about that before they hired a full-time guy. So it's just interesting seeing like ticket pricing strategies. I never thought would be so in depth, but you have to base it off of each different section of the stadium, who comes more, who comes less. And it's just, I learned a lot in that one. And I think just the company itself was really cool to work for.
Yeah, absolutely. There's different aspects of your position, your job that makes it your favorite. And I totally understand the side of gaining more experience, as well as the side of actually being able to enjoy and watch the game that you love. On that note, for me personally, a lot of the positions that I've had in sports requires me to be really, really focused on different aspects of sports, whether that's camera work, broadcasting, or doing events during games. It takes me away from physically watching the games. And obviously the hours can be really weird and really late hours a lot. Mm-hmm. So what's, for you personally, what are some of your pros and cons of working in sports?
So I think because when I eventually want to go back into sports, and the side I want to be on is the sports consulting side, or data and statistics for like ESPN. So that's not directly with a sports team. And so I think that's one of my big pros is there's opportunities to work in sports that's not for a team. And so you can still enjoy the sport outside of work. Working for, say, like the minor league baseball team, the Tacoma Rainiers, that was nice because I got to be on the field running promotions. And so in between innings, I would get to watch the game while I was waiting for these promotions to happen. Because that job, you did all the work before the game for the buildup, and then you just ran the promotions and put everything into motion. And so that was interesting with that. And same with like track and field, because my specific role was with the throwers. I would do all the work that they asked me to do. I'd do the stuff in the equipment room. I would help out around where I was needed. And then once that was done, kind of my reward was, oh, okay, I put everything into motion. I did what I was told, and I can kind of sit and just relax while I wait for the next thing to come up. So the downside is the hours. I think a lot of it was at least for the track and field team, for example, I would be working. I'd get there at 8 a.m. some days, sometimes 6 a.m. before a track meet, and I wouldn't leave till like 11 o'clock at night, depending on how long and how much work you have. Same with like for the Tacoma Rainiers, there was a rain delay, and so you have to wait through a 3-hour rain delay if they're not going to call off the game if it doesn't get to like the 6th inning. And so then you're sitting there just waiting for the lightning to stop, and it's 11 o'clock at night, and you got to go on the road at 6 a.m. or something. You got to do something else. So sometimes the hours are a lot, but like I said, with sports consulting, it's kind of like a 9-to-5 job, or 8 to 4, however people organize it. So that's kind of why I liked it as well, as there's more of a set schedule, and I still get to work in sports and enjoy sports outside of it. Whereas I have had a couple of friends who have gone to work for a sports team and just ended up hating it because they don't get to enjoy the sport as much as they did before. So I got pretty lucky with the opportunities I had that gave me chances to enjoy the sport as well as do the work. But I've definitely seen it where people just go and they just hate their jobs because they're just selling stuff during games and they don't get to actually sit and work, enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things behind the scene in sports that people don't understand. They don't realize how sports works, and from the outside they think it's a glamorous position, but a lot of the time it's not.
Yeah. Like I said too, it's like getting on the field, and sometimes for a minor league team you have to push out the tarp, and you're like in the rain, you're doing stuff just to like keep the game going, but you don't actually get to enjoy the game. So
yeah, absolutely. After hearing all about the downsides about working in sports, if anyone else is still interested in pursuing a career in sports, what are some of your suggestions and recommendations for that person?
So one of the first things I did when I was at school, so I signed up for all the sports business classes I was allowed to take each term. And so with that, I went and talked to each teacher and networked with them as well. So I got to see kind of their experience, how they got to where they were. And then with the clubs, I joined clubs. I also joined the club basketball team where I was able to be the treasurer of the club basketball team. So that was another thing that gave me experience as well as getting to play a sport that I love to play. So getting involved in clubs, networking with people, like I had mentioned at the Boston Analytics, the MIT Sloan Conference, just networking with some guy who worked for the Philadelphia Eagles who I just wanted to hear what he did because his role was an accountant for the Eagles. And I was just interested because I was still contemplating if I want to be an accountant. That ended up with me getting a job for the Craft Analytics group. And if I had chosen to go down that path, I could still probably connect with him and go into that. And so I think networking is huge. Networking with teachers helps because they're not just like talking random stuff. They actually know what they've done. They've had experience. What my favorite teacher at Oregon, he actually goes to each Olympics and he writes articles and journalism posts on each Olympics. And so through that, he actually gave me an opportunity to just meet with him and learn what he does. And because I had networked with him, I was awarded the Sports Business Student Award in my graduating class at the University of Oregon. And that was solely through networking. And then of course, like working hard, but the networking really is what helps because if they like you, they'll give you the job. And Tyler mentioned a lot is who you know. And it honestly, unfortunately, it is not based on your experiences. If you know somebody and they like you, they'll get you a job. And that's what happened with like the Craft Analytics group or the award I won, or even with like the Birmingham Legion FC soccer club. Like just networking and reaching out to him is really unfortunately it's a lot of who you know, but if you network and put yourself out there, I think that's where COVID helped me at least because I get kind of scared to talk to people in person sometimes, but over COVID I'm like, okay, it's on a video screen, so while we can take advantage of it, we should.
Yeah, absolutely. I admire people who can put themselves out there and not afraid to like talk to people, and I try to take a lot of like public speaking classes. I have taken a lot of public speaking classes just so I can try to talk myself into the mindset of being open and reaching out to people. But obviously I still have a long way to go. Networking is absolutely one of the top advice that everyone in the industry would give. And I think you summarized it really, really well. If you have a really good positive attitude and you talk to people, and if you're a likable person, if you're likable enough, people will give you the opportunity. So with that being said, thank you, Grace, for coming on today and teach us a little bit more about your grind, your journey through sports so far. And this is Chat with Ty. I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.